So, hello, I'm Vanessa LaRue. I'm Senior Projects Manager at Transitions UK, and I am here with your good self. Do you want to introduce yourself and what you do for us?
Yeah, so I'm Simon Nichols. I'm a mentor for Transitions UK. I'm also a mental health first aid instructor and very proud to support Transitions UK in both my mentor capacity as well as a partner providing mental health first aid training.
Yes, you've been a fantastic partnership, and you delivered for us on our virtual project a course on anxiety and mental health, wasn't it?
Anxiety reduction, absolutely. Yeah, that was brilliant. Actually, it was that was delivered across Facebook, wasn't it?
That was it. It was our first one when we were going out of lockdown, going into lockdown and
It is
going, right, how
something,
do
yeah.
we carry on providing a service? And there you were with your beautifully ready presentation and support for young people on the project. So obviously you've been mentoring for a little while now. Do you know roughly how long you've been mentoring for?
Oh, goodness. I should have prepared for this a little bit better. Do you know what? I think it's nearly a year.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has. I think it was last summer because, yeah, yeah. I
It
think I
was
think
around
I did the,
then.
I think I did the training in July or August.
Yeah, I think it was because it was around the time we were doing the equine therapy because we were talking about
Yes.
your young person, whether they would do it or not and that kind of thing.
And it was we met at the Pottersbury,
Yes,
the open day with Prosecco and canopies. I remember that
that's it.
well.
National Volunteers Week.
National
Always need a
Volunteers
good
Week.
celebration.
Well, there we go. If we can find out when National Volunteers Week is, we'll know how long I've been doing it. But it feels like a year.
Yeah.
Let's just go with a year.
And so your young person has a few vulnerabilities, and we won't say their name to keep it confidential. But kind of what issues do they have that you've had to support with?
So if we talk about this in two parts, because the first part was obviously just normal mentoring and whatever that looked like, and I guess my young person that I was helping, his biggest issue I think was that he hadn't felt he had anyone to rely on. So even a simple thing such as writing a CV. So he'd never written a CV before. So we went into working out what he wanted from a job and whether or not his skill set was appropriate. He was also learning to ride a motorbike, and we had to look at ways that we could help support him apply for that motorbike training as well. So it was just sort of things that were, I guess, would be quite simple to individuals that had access to that level of support before,
Mm.
but in many cases something that I would take for granted, that you could write a CV, was actually quite a daunting prospect. If we and so that's that first sort of thing, I guess, which is really just
Practical. Sounds
practical.
practical.
Absolutely. But then we move into what's happened in the last 4 months, whereby we've started to see, or I started to see signs of some of his vulnerabilities coming a bit more to the forefront. And obviously we've not been able to physically meet for 3 months now. I do keep in, I wouldn't say constant contact. He can be a bit elusive, but it's certainly regular contact via WhatsApp.
Hmm.
He's not a big talker on the phone, so he hasn't really responded well to having a chat. But
Mm.
he does, which is what I like, because of the support that your Transitions UK give me. Sometimes they can't get hold of him, or you can't get hold of him, and I'm like, well, actually, he replied to me yesterday, so it's nice to know that he trusts me enough now, after nearly sort of 9 months, to be able to respond to me at the same time as maybe not responding to other people. So
I
yeah.
agree. There's something else I've noticed with other young people on project. There is a 6 to 9 month rapport trust building phase with the young people on Attain. I mean, obviously on the Attain project they are care leavers, and therefore their experiences will affect kind of how they want to relate to the project. But also they may have had so many professionals in. Well, why am I going to bother? And I think that's our biggest barrier, is that rapport and trust and engagement. So it's a good issue to raise.
It is, and you're right. It has taken time because now I feel that I've got a relationship with him that is very much based on trust because I've not hassled him, I've not pressured him. I've been able to offer assistance when he's needed it, and in cases where I couldn't offer assistance, such as he needed some lift sometime when I was busy, I was able to make sure that he was okay and still, being able to get to where he needed to get to. And you're absolutely right because it's now I can, if I just send him a note to say I'm checking in, and I did have to check the other day. I said, am I bothering you? Am I sending you too many messages? And he went, no,
Mm.
no, no, please keep sending the messages. So
Oh.
whether or not it's actually providing a comfort for him to know that someone else is looking out for him,
Mhm.
who's not a family member, who's not part of the system, I think is quite nice for him to lean on.
I think so. I think that also leads into the fact that, we are expanding our project. We've got a whole new area and mentors that need to go through that difficult journey that you've almost had to go through. What are your top tips? What would you say if you wish a mentor had told you a year ago and you've had to learn the hard way? What would it be?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think, as you said, the onboarding process now is much more robust. And it wasn't that I didn't feel supported being onboarded. It's just we've all learned. We've all learned
Mm,
from the last year as mentors, and in feedback from mentees, and obviously feedback that we've given to you on our regular calls. And
mm,
so the support from the Transitions UK management leadership team has been fantastic. I think it's, for me, it was really not knowing what not to do, because I mean I've done mentoring in the past, and the issue I think you get when you've got an individual with vulnerabilities is you're not necessarily prepared for some of the information that you're given. And
okay.
so
Yeah.
for me and for a lot of the other mentors, I mean, I was lucky being as you can see from behind me, being a mental health first aid instructor. I was able to tackle the anxiety levels, to understand why the individual was feeling that way. But for
Mm,
many others, it was their first awakening or awareness that
mm,
young people have these levels of anxiety, have these levels of frustration with society and
yes.
the establishment. And so I think now I would charge any mentor coming onto the program to try and find out as much as they can about mental health, as much as they can about the individual that they're going to be caring for, because it is a caring role. We
Mm,
don't come into mentor to sort of be a sergeant major or to order people around. It's we want to nurture and we want to give back based on our experiences. But I think some people just come into it with, oh, I'm just going to have a chat with a nice young person, and I'm going to offer them the wisdom of my years of being an accountant, and suddenly they don't want to hear about accountancy. They want to hear about what I can do to help them get through today because they're not feeling very well. So I think it's having that awareness of a lot of the issues that young people go through, I think is really quite important. And understanding that us as 40 something mentors, which is a good time of life to be a mentor, is we're talking to people who were born after the year 2000 potentially. And
mm.
so being
Yeah,
born,
definitely.
yeah, in a different environment, in a different world. And I think we just need to be cognizant of the fact that they talk a different language. And
Oh yes, we've
yeah,
had that come up, haven't we? So we have that WhatsApp group, don't we, where we can all
yeah,
have a bit of a chat in, and obviously we ended up with a conversation because a message was seen by a young person, and the interpretation generationally, well, I didn't say that right, but was very different to what it meant to young people. And
yeah.
it was you, didn't it? Shall we check Urban Dictionary?
Yeah, we must never check Urban Dictionary on an open WhatsApp call again. It's yeah, it is, and I think that's the thing that people need to prepare themselves for, is that they should You know, they are going to be talking to vulnerable individuals
Mm,
who may not get their way of talking.
mm.
And so it isn't, you know, people should come in and it isn't a one size fits all. You'll just be able to fix everything, and know that actually it's not about fixing, it's
True.
about listening.
There's no flying in, making a huge difference quickly, and being on a program for 18 to 24 months. You've fixed them and you've ran off and you've fulfilled a self purpose of, I want to make a difference.
Mm.
Instead, it's like a slow burning candle, isn't it? You've got to go in, you've got to be persistent and consistent, I would say, like regular contact. Even when they're not responding to you, which you've indicated has happened with yourself, it's that I'm still here for you, just letting you know, hoping that you're okay, and I'm here if you need to chat. And even if you don't hear from them a week or two, you know, a week later, you've sent them another message or given them a call, and then suddenly you start, they know you're there. Like
Yeah.
they know you're there. And until you've done that, from my experience, is that young person doesn't really understand, well, what's the point? They don't really, it feels like, not with everyone, but definitely a high proportion, like, well, why would I engage if you know, you're going to disappear in 6 weeks' time?
Well,
So
it's, I mean, you know, I liken it to, obviously, my only view of this is obviously from the media and stuff. But when you see people in foster care and they're in a foster home for 3 weeks, what can you do in 3 weeks? And
yeah.
suddenly they're in another one in 3 weeks and another one, and then, you know, you might be 10 foster carers down the line, and you sort of like, well, you know, it should be all right. And yet you think actually no one's been constant or consistent to be
Mm,
able to offer that level of support. And for me, I think that's the thing, is that, as you say, it is a long haul, and because they've got to build up the trust, they've got to build up the relationship. And I think, yeah, that's what I'd say to anybody who's wanting to become a mentor. It's hugely fulfilling, but it isn't a quick fix.
yeah, I think that was actually going to be my next question. Would you, you know, you can be honest here. Would you recommend mentoring? What's your view on? Was it worth it? Has this last year been worth it?
Oh, completely. And I think the way that you need to approach this is, so I did, over the years, I've done a lot of good work for charity. What does that mean? I run up some mountains. I'd done some marathons. I walked 25 miles. I raised a lot of money for charity, but that's not the same as giving up your time, because
Mm,
to become a mentor, you actually, you know, it's part of you're giving up. And whereas you could say, well, I gave 3 hours to run a marathon, or I, you know, to run up a silly mountain, you know, it took me 2 days, whatever that looks like. And that's not to belittle those things, because they're very important
mm,
fundraisers, but that's the thing. It's about raising funds so that organizations and charities like Transitions UK can do the great work they do. So I'm not belittling that. What I'm saying for me was, I could have carried on just raising money, but it never felt as though I was giving part of me.
mm.
And that's what turned it around for me. And now I'm looking at becoming a trustee for another local charity as well. And you know, it just sort of, it means more if you're giving time, because money's money. You know, if I raise some
Mm.
money, I give you some money, you know, I teach a man to fish and he can fish and all of that great stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
um, but the money is, you know, the time that I expended is, oh, it's fun as well, isn't it? Oh, I ran, or I cycled, or I did this. But actual fact, the time that you invest in a young person is something of yourself that you've given over to them, but it's something else they wouldn't be able to get from anywhere else. And I think for me, that's really important. I think as a mentor, you've got to be prepared for giving some of yourself, more of yourself than you might be if you think, oh, I'm just going to do some charitable work, or I'm just going to,
Yeah.
you know, help out because I'm good with young people. It's really, you've got to want to be part of it. And I think that's the most important thing for me.
Thank you. And obviously we warn you, you know, we only started 6 months before you joined the project anyway. And I think, you know, one of your comments earlier is right. We've changed a lot over the last year. And I definitely feel even in lockdown, some of the things that we put in place that we will now keep
Yeah.
actually means we will have better support, and there's mentor and mentor support in house, and obviously the staff are there. It doesn't mean we win in every case. And sometimes our mentors have had a journey where they've had one or two mentees, which isn't
Yeah.
obviously your own experience. Luckily for you, it's worked from person one.
Yeah.
But that equally, I feel that's a reflection on your consistency and persistency. So thank you for everything you've done, and
No
can't
problem.
wait to see where we get to at the end of the program with your young person.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And as I say, if anyone wants to, is anyone thinking of becoming a mentor and wants to have a chat, then you can get my contact details from Vanessa, and, just ring me up. I'll talk you through my experiences, and hopefully get you to sign up and be part of the team.
Thanks, that's so kind of you.